very good morning to all our attendees and also to all our listeners, because as you know, in Bharatiya tradition, most of our colleagues normally tend to catch up on the recording. So wherever you are, I hope you are healthy and looking after yourself. So what are we going to discuss today? Today we'll be covering the future of facilities delivery strategies. It sounds mouthful, but bear with me for the next 30-35 minutes. Let me run through some of the principles that we see, that we found from our conversations and also based on our database research. So let's go very quickly to see what are the things that's happening in our FM market that we need to be aware of. So the very first interaction that I would very much like to share is this. What work from home has done to our industry is there is a paradigm shift that it has brought into the future of work discussion. Because in this slide, I'll be sharing lots of convictions. Convictions are things, as you know, that I believe in, and convictions are the thing that we need to have some basis on before we make some decisions. So there are some convictions, and conviction number one is the compelling event of this work from home paradigm because of COVID quickly transformed into the future of work discussions, right? So there are two things that's happening in parallel. Number one, we are talking about how the work needs to be done. We are also reimagining how the worker or the employee needs to be in part of the organization. So there are two different things. One is a talent, how we are going to manage the talent in this work from home paradigm. Secondly, how we are going to manage the sourcing, the retaining, recruiting, skills development of the colleagues. And we also need to look into how the actual work from home means, how the entire sourcing is going to work in this industry, the procurement is going to work in this industry. We already seen in our COVID 1 month and COVID 6 month how the procurement got affected because of this work from home paradigm, but we'll touch a little bit deeper on that as well. Then we look into the work as a whole, how the future of work will look like, not just the workmen or the workwomen, but the overall how the work needs to look like. So what happens here is, what we are going to see here is there's an interaction between the worker, the workplace, and the workplace. Every company will be perceiving this interaction very differently. Because of that, we are going to find different business models targeting industry in the coming few months. Companies were unable to shift into this three-phase interaction between the worker, workplace, and the workways are going to struggle. We already know who they are, but let's just see today, our discussions is going to revolve around first reactions to COVID-19. We will be rewinding what we touched last week or the week before, what the first reactions to that, how we have bucketed companies into three categories. Then we very quickly look into the future of delivery and the location strategies. So if you're not being aware of us, this is us. Part two is market and sales development consultancy. Predominantly, we also have a specialized research arm called RAIN, which focuses on the facilities management sector. So patchurain.com, you can find loads of insights about the UK facilities management market. With that note, this is not the first time we are doing webinars. Webinars have been happening for all the year. Where if you want to get to know about the UK facilities management market, you can get in to have enough insights about the market here. So what happens here, you can find information about the markets, you can find information about services as well, broken down by services and markets. If you are a sales director or chief executive managing director looking to revisit, hey, what's my addressable spend in the market? What is my competitive position in the market, etc.? Here we go. Listen to it. It's been listened over 1,000 times, but please do listen to it and make your decisions accordingly. With that thing, this was 1 month into COVID. 1 month into COVID, why we did these webinars is because we had conversations with our trusted friends in the industry. Most of them are chief execs or managing directors or group sales directors or group strategy directors. Those are the four key elements. And we came out with a few insights of immediately what happened after 1 month into COVID. Please do listen into that. If you haven't listened to that, you're going to find some fascinating insights. The only still available impact on the market is there. The next one is going to be 6 months into COVID-19. We call it VUCA, with volatility, volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. Yes, so even I'm struggling with my terminology because that's the market that we are facing in. So 6 months into the sector, how did the sector perform as a whole in adjusting to this new normal? Uh, we also found some interesting information 6 months into the journey. Again, speaking to over 100 plus um, leaders in the market. We don't speak to people about future of work or future of workplace. We just go straight into the leaders and speak to them in multiple ways. And we also track the companies, how they do what they did. All these findings are there. 6 months into COVID, another reactions came out. But what I want to bring your attention to is these two things. Number one, we are in a curve at the moment, whether it's a recession, V curve, W curve, X curve, we don't know, but there is a recession in the market. And the recession is only getting deeper as COVID goes on. And again, every company or every buyer, both as a service provider and as a buyer, are trying to adjust to those reactions. When we switch off, when we switch on, the lockdown happens, lockdown closes, shops open, shop doesn't open, flights are open, flights are not open, stay at home. All these things impact decision making of any level of company, let alone small, big, let alone what sectors you are. We touched in 6 months into COVID how many sectors have been impacted and some sectors thrive. What those sectors are, you can go and have a look in the 6 months into COVID-19 webinar. But most important thing here is you're going to find some pattern. The pattern that's emerging for us are this. This is as of September 2021, when we consolidated and presented at the end of October. The very first reactions I would like to share with you is this. The market, regardless whether what sector is it, regardless whether service provider or buyer, is being bucketed into three different categories: the survivors, the observers, and the accelerators. Survivors, buyers, observers, and the accelerators. What do I mean by the survivors? Is playing defense. Yes, every company played defensively, but during March, April, because it got hit. Total uncertainty, chaos kicked in around March when we all need to shut down and go back home. So everybody went to survive mode, tried to retain as many contracts possible, tried to keep their cash flows intact, tried to work with their suppliers, make them also, survive, and so on. So observers are the guys, survivors are the guys who continue to be on the same mode where we cut to the very minimum and they're just keeping, and predominantly you can consider they have cash between 0 to 1 month or 0 to 3 months maximum. So the continually playing defense, their chosen markets are massively disrupted, like retail and so manufacturing and so on. So whereas the observers, they started as a survivors, but they positioned themselves tactically. They are reacting to the market. They chose bit by bit. They chose customer. They chose who they want to work with. And many are facing difficult decisions in this second half. Many took this. Remember, this was done in September, right? Which means they still had 1 quarter, October, November, December, to frame themselves for 2021. Observers are planning to consider the market only in Q2 or Q3 2021. Q3 or Q2, that means for the next 6 months, they are going to observe the market. Majority of the providers are like that, but they're tactically reacting. And you could find that from the communication that's coming in the market. Whereas accelerators are companies, okay, we've all survived. I don't want to keep on observing things. Let me try to accelerate in this market. It's a adventurous decision. Not many companies are willing to do that, but 9% of the companies are willing to do that. These are top 85 companies who control 99% of the UK market. Top 85 companies. Yes, sorry, it's 95% of the UK market. The rest 5% has been scattered into family-owned small FM local-based cleaning FM companies, but predominantly the top 85 control 95%, and this survey covers everybody. What happens here is the approach that these guys create will also differentiate what delivery structure that they are going to look at. The survivors will be defending using the same approach that they're currently doing. Observers will be tactically changing their delivery structure. whereas accelerators are looking at completely different structure. The important question here from these reactions is, as we touched last time, whether the survivors will be survivors, or the observers will be observers, or the accelerators will be accelerators. That will dictate how the future outlook of the market look like. So, simple example, accelerators might accelerate in the wrong market, and because of things outside their control, like the lockdown, like the Brexit, like the Scotland referendum, the chosen sectors, if they're not careful, macroeconomic conditions will pull them down into observers. Or if they accelerated quickly in the wrong market, they could very well become survivors and be lost. Or they might grow, become bigger. Observers, if they continue to observe for long, they might fall into survivors, and many of the survivors will go bust if they continue to do that, or they might switch gear and they become observers. So which means the percentage of the proposition might change, but the behavior of the companies, regardless whether they're service providers or buyers, will be the same. So when you're approaching a company, you can look into their models and say, hey, whether they're survivors or observers or accelerators. These are some of the things that they're doing. And what also happens here is, if you're looking at the market in general, there will be dip. And already, facilities management market runs around 2% to 3% profitability, but you will see majority of the companies, accelerators, if they drive efficiency and do digital, whatever they talk, they actually do, they need to go much higher level of execution to retain what they currently got. They're going to grow massively into 10% or 20%, but they'll be able to incrementally improve their current position. Whereas the observers, as you can clearly see, is pretty much going to be neutral position, like zero margin. If they continue to observe next year, it's going to go down if they're not careful. Whereas the survivors, because they're surviving, they're going to do reactively, make a lot of mistakes, and they realize that the profitability is going down, then they're going to bid and win contracts, which they're not supposed to bid and win. And you can clearly see where the market will go. So if you look at this pattern, the biggest competition you can foresee will be happening in the region of 500,000 to 2 million in the facilities management market. That's where you will find a lot of competition hitting. Anything under 500K is going to be for smaller companies. The big players won't be interested in, or they might do it as projects. If there's anything about £2 million to £5 million is the second wave of competition, but anything above £5 million tends to be having less competition. When you have less competition, you're talking about 4 to 5 big players competing against those sectors. So what you have here is, again, the delivery structure will depend on these three guys. And these three guys will be differentiated based on the execution, their implementation of their delivery model. And that's where it's going to be challenging for these guys. So, because new way of working and the work from home means investments required, and with zero cash, guess what? It's not going to be that easy, right? So what happens here is there are three different forms of service provider landscape that you're going to find. Someone will be looking to survive, someone will be looking to observe, someone will be looking to accelerate. Whether they accelerate at this level on the disc graph, it's a question mark, but all you're going to find here is three different things. Are you going to reassess your current revenue strategy? Are you going to reimagine your growth engine? Or are you going to reallocate your execution? So these are some of the reactions that's happening in the market. This is not just service provider, as I mentioned. Your buyers will also be trying to do that. So if you are an accelerator trying to bid against a buyer who's trying to survive, then guess what? You're looking at the long frame. So what happens here is your ability to understand your buyer, which bucket they fit in. This needs to be very critical, which means you need to be absolutely clear in your bid no bid decisions before you decide what delivery model you're going to approach. If you go and put your accelerated model in a surviving company, you are going to accelerate them, but by doing that, you're going to spend a lot of money in investment, a lot of process, a lot of people, a lot of resources into putting in this, which means you might not be accelerating, you might be actually coming down. So you need to be carefully planning your bid no bid across these sectors based on where your buyer is. So from then on, we already touched this. It's a different level of graphs that we are hitting, regardless what they are. Are they going to tax us for driving every mile? Are they going to attack our capital gains tax? We don't know, but the money, the trillion pounds or something that they actually spend will need to be recovered in the next 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. So what that meant is the shock to the economy, the reaction to the shock, and the reaction to the reaction continue to dictate who those people are in the market. So very, very quickly, as I mentioned, the convictions is super, super critical. You cannot base your decision without firm foundations. Number one, all service delivery locations, regardless whether it's retail, regardless whether it's commercial buildings, regardless whether it's nuclear sites, were all impacted. But believe it or not, most of it, including NHS Trust, figured out how to work remotely. Yes, it's an important conviction. We have to accept that happen. Eventually, it's fine. As I mentioned, we all manage to make it work. Second one, COVID-19 exposed lack of resilience in the location models. Yes, so the buildings, even the building that I am based, for the past 5 months, there is only 6 people in my entire floor. Started with 2, went to 4, went to 6, but it never went up. And when there is a COVID case, which happened yesterday in our building, we don't know who they are. What happens? The number of flow of people will continue to decrease. It means there is a lack of resilience in a location model, regardless whether you're working for buyers or service providers. So there are many cleaners and engineers in most of the buildings in London than actually employees, because they're trying to make the building resilient, but the trust in the building, or the trust in the transport structure, the trust in the way employees believe that the buildings are resilient is still not be done, which means there is still a continued lack of resilience in location models. Number 2. And number 3, buyers will embrace new service models. There are bids that will be coming out, unfortunately, which will be having the same return pattern, because the buyers don't have we are seeing more and more. We at least observed 5 different tenders this 4 weeks actually, where what the buyers said what they want to what's written on the tender, which was exactly the same thing pre-COVID, was written, because they actually don't know how to write their own new service model based tender, which means what they were given in the tender to what they want is very different. But at the same time, they don't want to spend a lot of procurement spend on rewriting, redrafting, going for dialogues, etc. So you're going to find this interesting place where the buyers will embrace new service models using the same contracts, or there is a journey for them to transform into new contracts. But please be assured, buyers will embrace new service models. If you have one, let them know it. Number 4, you might be thinking UK centric, London centric, Northeast, Northwest, Scotland centric. What important thing here is, even where we are in UK, every region is impacted, and each region is in different stages of recovery. If you're a national provider, if you're a regional provider, you need to understand this. You cannot come out with a full-fledged decision, this is how it needs to operate. You need to have a regional strategy. Or if you're a global company, you need to have a countrywide strategy, which again needs to split out. Scotland, Wales, England, inside England, London, for example. You can clearly see COVID varies in region by region, which means you also need to, important conviction here is all countries are important, each are in different stages of recovery. Number 4, work from home will coexist with work from office. We have few slides that proves this. What happens here is, yes, work from home pre-COVID was at lowest level. During COVID, this is the highest level. Post-COVID, there will be a rebalance where it will never be in the same level as currently we are. Post-COVID, there will be some element of work from home, but it will never be at the same level as it is currently. So when you're making judgment, don't just make it like everybody will be working from home. We will touch some of these things, but today our delivery strategy will focus on locations. It won't focus on technology, or it won't focus on cleaning or any sort of high level thing. It focuses on delivery, how your location is going to impact, right? So What happens here, this is the final point, commercial real estate will transform to accommodate new working and social norms. We are seeing this more and more, how bigger companies are trying to come up with research reports that says, work from home is not going to be all the time. It's going to be different, the new way of working, so and so. The real estate companies will do their best to make accommodate new working and social norms. So these are some of the workplace convictions which we are basing our strong foundations on in this analysis. So let's moving on. What happens? Um, okay. While you're making these assumptions, there are a few things that are moving around us, right? There are a few. This is what makes this very, very challenging, and why survivors and observers behave in the way they do, because things are affected at all levels for them. Number one, the government support and flexibility. There is a conducive regulation to enable work from home. It's mandated, but do they have the IT infrastructure, including quality and cost of broadband and connectivity, is a question mark, right? So who takes the risk? As an employer, you take the risk. Are you paying for your IT infrastructure? Are you paying for any other bills for your customers to deliver their thing? I don't know. But factors enabling the remote delivery of work, these are some of the challenges. Laptops, not everybody works from home, has kids, etc. The favorable nature of works, we're all doing MS Teams, but it's been used to death, to be honest. So Microsoft Teams, what we have, the voice and non-voice, it's just like, can help desk. This is predominantly help desk based, service-based thing. And the amenability of remote working model. So they all used to work together. They have the infrastructure, they have the big desktop, they have connectivity, but now they're working from home. Many have migrated, but it still relies on very, very weak infrastructure. So when there is a change, there is factors that enables here, that beyond that. Okay, let's move away from the number one. There is rising cost pressures, because there is not much investment. Most companies have 1 to 3% profitability, and they cannot go and invest on all these things to make it work. So they have to strike a balance. Number two, the furlough and the job retention schemes have been extended to March, but still, people have been made redundant every day, because that's how people needs to work on. If I'm surviving, I just need to cut to the very bottom. Then if there is a capacity issue, then I will address the capacity issue. But for the very minimum of survival, unfortunate, what happens here is there is an unemployment situation. Then you have the work from home freelancers, the new office pods. I'm based in an office pod. And so on. So the greater demand for complex digital skills, digital next generation IT. Then there is a focus on business continuity resilience. So this is in the mind of the chief exec or the CXO board. They need to make the quick transition to remote delivery. And these are the factors that affected them in March. These are the factors that affected them in August. And these are the factors that's affecting them in October, when there is a lockdowns. These are the factors that continue to affect. But whether they have a dashboard to measure these things, whether they have any consistent way of approaching these things, no. But they are just making decisions based on important things, but these factors will continue to impact them. So few slides on work from home. What happens here? Work from home refers, very, very simply, these are some of the key characteristics of work from home. You can go and test it out, whether what you are doing work from home, whether you have these facilities. In today's discussion, the work from home that I will be using is based on the context below. That is, regardless, it's applicable to contractors and full-time employees. If you do have contractors still working, I'll be questioning why. The compensation or the benefits of work from home and office employees are still the same. The employer provides appropriate technology. Employees have the option to operate from office when needed. Similar expectations on performance and career improvement, right? So you have the basic infrastructure of work from home, but it's very basis. When you look at the delivery structure, this basis was not done, which means work from home was done effectively. Here we go, take your laptop, work from home. But it wasn't worked at the very detailed level of, do they have the right tools and techniques to do that? We all know this. When we look, what are the benefits and challenges in doing that? Again, in many companies, HR, IT, finance, not normally, they don't talk to each other. So which means you have this basic challenge of how the whole thing is going to work, how your HR principles, how your IT principles and your finance principles are going to collectively work, which means there is a lot of benefits, but we also know the challenges in the marketplace at the moment because of lack of social connections. There is enough research around it. I'm not going to dwell deeper on that. What happens here then comes our workforce strategy thing. When we worked with the CXOs, these are some of the elements that they looked at. Number one, what is my talent strategy? What is my people strategy? And then what is my work optimization levers? So it's still being done in a reactive way. When we're looking at a delivery strategy, the number of engineers, number of cleaners, number of overheads that you have, this is our preferred model. But if you look, the companies don't invest as much as they want to invest. But the future of delivery model means you need to incorporate this in your strategy. How many people and how long will it continue is a question mark, but you should absolutely have in a future delivery model some sort of workforce strategy. And one of the models is what I'm sharing here. What happens here is who are the people who are working remote? Who are the people who will be working at home? And what's the impact on well-being? Who takes a role in the company? And how does the overall organization approach this? Because the important thing here is when we talk to the buyers, especially the commercial buyers, there were many service providers who talk workforce strategy, but when they were asked to show how they deliver their workforce strategy, it was totally nil. So enough of thought leadership, research reports, and so on the things, but demonstration of workforce strategy, this is how we have done. It's very, very difficult to find a single case study that demonstrates this is how things have been working. But you're going to find everybody changing their facility services into workplace management, workforce management, etc. Honestly, they haven't even done it for their own company, let alone how are they going to do it for others. It's an open-ended statement. Many people, you can challenge me with, hey, we have done this, but is it consistent? Is it something that you can lift and drop across different models, whether COVID lockdown happened or not, is variable. But if you have good, but if you don't have important, because that will break you in your future delivery model, because this is going to continue. So 3 pointers: what's the talent strategy, how you're going to manage it, and what you're going to be people strategy. It's all there, but you just need to connect it. Your finance, IT, procurement, and also your HR needs to be connected. Important point here is what's the role of FM in the buyer's organization's workforce strategy, because if HR, IT, supply chain, and finance needs to work in the buyer side, what role are you going to play in doing this? Those are sensitive information. How are you going to play other than building things? There are many companies who are starting to come out with technology solutions. So like, even we tested it where if you give us a list of employees in your region, then we will scan the availability of hot spots or hot desks in your local area, so that you could invite who needs to be done in different hotspots inside the same locality where you are. So we managed it for here for a local client here. When we tested it, it was very interesting, but then it becomes a very robust process of managing that. And the most important thing is when the COVID case does happen, how does the whole people strategy work? So these are some of the four stages of the workforce transition service delivery model for your future delivery. And this will go round and round and round and round. This is a cyclical model. So first stage, work from home scramble. We all know that. The second stage is resource continuity planning. Okay, how are we going to deliver? The third stage is cost out. Okay, I'm going to remove the cost, and then you reset to new normal. These 4 stages will continue to happen regardless of what level you are in. You are in lockdown, you manage this in the first 6 months, but you are reset to the new normal, but the new normal keeps on changing, which means what process do you follow in your future delivery model, where you continue to scramble people work from home, you continue to plan, you'll continue to resource continuity planning, you continue to take cost out where it's not relevant, and you continue to reset. Most importantly, who's in charge in your company, who's doing this workforce transition? It's not HR. Your HR, unfortunately, with all due respect, will not be able to do this for you, which means you need to have somebody in the buyers. What we have seen is IT, FM have joined hands together. and they have been given this role to play in many banks. This is what we have seen. ITFM, the property and the digital directors have come together to do this for them. Then it is a door-to-door to people in your company. If you're doing it, are you mapping yourself in the same level as them? If you're not, then you are losing the boat here, right? It happens very quickly. So what else is happening? When you're scrambling, this is just for illustrative purposes, how companies have done. So work from home, as you know, obviously it releases the real estate to a certain extent. Some have to keep it because London base is important, or wherever you are, the city center base is important. But the future delivery model means when you're driving cost, many companies are done in different ways. Again, in your company, do you have this? How many of the workforce have they have gone remote, and what is the actual cost efficiency that you have got? This is a illustrative assessment. If you have put 5% of your workforce, you get X amount in your people cost saving. If you put 20%, you're going to get this percent. So which means in your company, by making people remote that you already have done, you might have a ballpark number, but do you have it as a variable cost? Do you have it in a way where you could actually say the future of delivery, that's how it's going to evolve? Hey, our mix of people will be done in two different models. One, they will be fixed, and they will also be available to do the multiple way. So if that's the case, how are you going to approach this in your new solutions? You need to have a model that you need to go for. So what happens here is, again, a business case for work from home, your future delivery model. When you're working with your client, they will expect you to come out with something like this, which is like, hey, total operating cost in my traditional model. Because of work from home, my people cost savings is this. And because of real estate infrastructure savings is this. My technology infrastructure savings, actually, it's going to increase or decrease depending on how we operate. And there could be some other savings, I don't know. You can decide. And the total operating cost in the hybrid model is this. The future bidding model, the future solution model will be delivered across this. It won't be S50/20. It won't be like cleaning per hour cost, living wage, etc. You need to be focusing on something bigger like this. We already touched some of the key factors, but the focus is on workforce. When you work from home, as I mentioned, there are a couple of things, 4 things that you need to cover. One is the real estate impact, the technology impact, the talent impact, and the type of work that you might need to go for. I'll share the slides due course, but it's important for you to really understand how work from home will be used in your upcoming solutions, regardless of whatever the FM company you are, how is it going to be used, and whether you can map it across all these 4 layers. Real estate, we already touched. Many companies have done this so many times when we have this 2-meter distance and stickers, just 2 people in your left, and wash your hands and all the stuff in. But it's gone beyond. It's gone beyond where many FM players are now data driven. So simply they are just asking, okay, give me the list of your assets and give me also your list of people, and where are they based, how are they based. We can then come out with a model that not just manages your assets, but also manages your people. So if you don't have the data crunching model, it's time to put the data crunching model, because the future of service models will be very different to what you approach. Yes, the tender document unfortunately will follow the same thing, because as I mentioned, the system will need at least 12 to 18 months to settle down. For now, every contract is renewed, but for now, every buyer wants a new service model. But whether that's been translated into new working force is going to be done by proactive accelerators will drive the new service model, then that get embedded for the observers and the survivors to operate. But if you are an accelerator, you have an opportunity to shape it, educate it, and make it work for your client. And you will be surprised the number of contracts that may be coming in the market, where they'll be willing to listen to shape it. We have already supported 2, as I mentioned, out of 5. 2 have came back and said, this is the retail stores that we have. We have plans to scope this. These are the number of people, and we would like to have 5 providers in the marketplace. Who do you think we should put the tender for? Because we are looking for a new service model. We don't want the same guys again. Okay, so we're working with them at the moment to just see what this new service model looks like. So it encompasses all the four buckets that I talked about in the previous slide. So moving on, what happens here? The convictions, the pre-COVID assumption to the post-COVID assumption will continue to evolve, right? So what happens here during COVID, most of the companies have 75% of the workforce or more working in here. Whereas in the COVID environment, pre-COVID, sorry, less than 10% goes to 75%, and please be prepared to get into 20% or 50% depending on who we are. What that meant is, do you have a model that can help you to swing? What if I do 10% work from home? What if I do 50% work from home? What if I do 75% work from home? And how does it impact not just on the company, but also on the contracts that I'm bidding for? Right? We already touched that. So, from our surveys, this is what we found out. 71% of the companies we surveyed operated a single location strategy. These are national providers. They have a massive head office where everybody was traveling wherever they are. You know who they are. And 42% had two locations where 75% of the FTEs were 42% have predominantly 70%, and then you can see the numbers here. So what happens here is the future location model, how you're going to base yourself will be constructed. At the moment, we are in survivor mode and people are cutting off locations as we speak. What that happens is the number of locations will be very varied depending on who we are and how it's going to be operated. But key change is expected in future location model of where you are. This is the numbers. It's not been there anywhere else. This is only with us. So let's go. So what happens here is, the new workplace model of where you're going to deliver. Everybody knows this, but here we go. What's the local office? What's the head office? And what's your just WeWork type shared office? So, the number of employees, where they live, how much you could accommodate in a head office, when they want. Can you map it out in a way that you could put them into a main hub, or you can put them in a small spoke, or you could put them in the satellite pod, or they continue to work from home. At the moment, it's between hub and work from home. This transition will happen in the next 6 to 9 months, and there are many players already doing that. And the likes of Capita and others are coming out with software. As I mentioned, we have already tested it ourselves, where based on your people postcode, it automatically maps up your local hotspots, and all you need to do that is, hey, I'm coming home, book a meeting room. It's all mapped off. It's all their technology is available, but whether companies will be investing on that with their 1 to 3% profitability is a question mark. So here we go. So how are they doing it? Number one, you select the work types that is suitable for remote working. Number two, you identify the qualified employees. And number three, you consider employment choices of, where can they work, how can they work, etc. Then you pull in the wider support services. As you can clearly see, you're just bucketing them based on their experience, and they're based on their availability and based on where they are. Then you create a couple of toolkits to just say, here we go, these are the employees and these are the real estate needs. This mapping today is not being done, but you will be expected to do this in the coming months, coming years, because COVID is not going to be, it's going to be with us, or some form of things will continue to work with us. And we are already away from work from home. So it's continuous. So I'm not going to dwell too much on these things. These are some of the factors. Again, some of the tools that we share so that you could balance what's the right planning mix. Honestly, ask yourself whether you have done this level, because it won't take much time, maybe a month of internal stakeholders all getting together to plan this based on my employees, based on my pipeline, and based on my current real estate presence, and based on the current accounts, on the current contracts, map it out and come out with these. But if you do that, then you will be in an accelerating mode to lift and drop your contracts in the future delivery model, regardless of what service you provide. I've kept it slightly generic this time. It's not about engineers, or it's not about cleaners, or not about security guards, but either way, whatever the services, you still need to do this. What happens here, there's a lot of talk on technology, but there are two things that came out strongly. Number one is, the safer betters. Everything was moved on cloud because people now need access from home. Before it was all in laptops, all moved on cloud, and that went massive. And secondly, the other one is some level of automation started to kick in that to help them to do some data crunching. So that's another thing. And other than that, social media, and things like bots and stuff also started to increase now. But also be prepared for this digital wave. You can have the 6 7 things in here, but definitely more and more investment will happen in the cloud. This is on the buyer side because they are putting all the stuff in. But how can you access the cloud, share the data, do some bots, make some analysis and stuff? That's your future way. I'm talking 2 to 3 years out here. So what will be insourced, what will be outsourced? There's a small checklist that we give to people. Here we go. Map out where you are currently and where you are in desired levels, and then plan it up from there. Finally, this is the first slide that we have, and I just want to close it with this. Your future delivery strategy model will be underpinned based on your interaction between your worker, your workplace, and the way how you are going to build up the worker, workplace, and your workways. That's it. If you're not doing it today, please do be ready for doing it, because this future of work discussion will continue. But rather than to say, I'm going to have a bespoke place here and there, this age group is talking like that, it's a role of FM, it's a role of XY, get on with it, have some tools in place. And once you connect your future pipeline with your existing accounts and with your current resource, you'll be able to do more for your future projects. That's the note. What happens here, survivors, observers, accelerators, don't forget that their behaviors will dictate. I sincerely hope you can do this cost effectively without incurring a lot of cost. But once you start to do that, you're going to do more for the clients, because remember the convictions. The buyers are looking for new service models, but at the same time, they don't know what they want. So the procurement is going to come out in the same way. It's entirely up to you to do more for them. But can you educate them? Can you shape it? Can you do that? This is the right time for you to do that. Before that, don't come out with a very fluffy workplace thing. Demonstrate how you can do that and show that how you have done in your own organization and help them to do that, which means the transition from facilities management to workplace consultancy is going to be smooth for you. That's it. There is always going to be winners and losers, unfortunately, in this industry. The future delivery model will make this gap even more wide. We'll continue to pump enough webinars for you to make the decisions. But for now, thanks for joining. Thanks for listening. And if there is any question, please do share it to me, and I'll be happy to answer your question. That's it from me. Stay healthy, stay happy, and I'll speak to you very soon. Take care. Bye-bye.